from there are people whose businesses are jacking up rates. Apparently, the restaurant industry is like just going to get murdered because people can't afford it. The amount of restaurants will decrease by 30 to 50%, apparently.
Yeah, it's crazy.
People don't realize that we're not maybe through the worst of it.
Well, people can't even afford to eat out anymore. Like people.
And the restaurants do ghost kitchens. They were trying to do a $48 billion rescue package. They did a $40 billion Ukrainian weapons package. And so inflation will continue to rage on.
Things aren't
like inflation will continue. It'll be some of the worst inflation that we've seen in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
It already is. So
everyone's saying like we're fucked, that kind of stuff. And like you can see like people on crypto Twitter like go out, touch grass, like things are pretty bad. So might as well like don't stare at screens, go outside. We golfed,
The interesting thing though is that the other people are hurting as well. So BlackRock and Vanguard, what they had done is they're rebalancing from their growth and tech stocks into energy. And on a macro scale, people are looking for a safe haven. It's like there's musical chairs, but actually no one has a chair.
Yeah, like if you invest in thing, like Netflix is down, 85%.
Netflix is down super hard. ARK Investments, which is a basket of like emergent technologies. Uber, a lot of startups are cutting jobs. A lot of people are getting laid off.
Yeah,
it's
tough.
Kind of a bloodbath. Like, might be worse than we've seen before.
No, especially for us being like, not in school, young professionals in our 30s, this is like probably the first time we've hit like in a recession. Like we were in high school when 2008 hit, so we didn't feel it.
Yeah.
And then, this is now we're on our own, we're out of school, we got jobs. So definitely counting pennies more, saving in,
Well, you can sense it. And I think that everybody else, like luckily, if you can work remote, the big thing is that you can avoid expenses of traveling to work.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a lot of extra expenses because you end up not having as much energy to cook your own food. I stay at home. I can cook my own food. I don't have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
So these are things that change things. But now they're trying to force people back into the office because there's been a lag in people's productivity.
And real estate too. They bought office buildings expecting people to work in them. And like if everyone's working remote, you're kind of wasting an investment on a building or paying rent for people is not using. So that's like hurts your bottom line. I know that for just software companies in Madison.
Well, and they've been talking about the everything bubble and the idea of the everything bubble. And we were chilling and having a good time, having some food with Varsha, but really on the macro level, this is like perhaps, and the difficult thing is that it'll have a knock-on effect. And what's happening now will hurt in a few months. The lockdowns in China, the sustained amount of Ukraine problems, the problems in Europe that will then everything, like, it's funny because I went to school in Europe, and in Europe, if America sneezes, Europe gets a cold. If Europe has cancer, like America gets a cold, but like we'll get a cold because like Europe has cancer. Like if our kind of small, weak friend,
they have no gas. There's no gas pipeline. They all got gas from Russia.
The amount of inflation that's happening, soon there might be protests in the streets. And I mean, there are parts of Europe that already have protests in the streets, where France, they had the yellow vests. I've got a friend who's Dutch. you're not Dutch, you ain't much. They're talking about getting out of the euro, Nexit, Brexit, Nexit. Italy is like kind of like starving on austerity. Germany might do better. The only thing is Germany has control of like a failing union. And not to be political about it, I'm just being honest, and I think many people might not know this about it, but my friend has serious feelings about the fact that there's unelected governments in Europe that are kind of in charge of a lot of the monetary policy. The ECB, the European Central Bank, is, I mean, can you say that anybody's doing well, but is it on the fault of the central banks? Are you an apologist for these large global companies, or are you on the side of Bitcoin? Like, we've been doing macro and talking about the world, but we'll get back to crypto. Like, is it a hedge? There's a lot of inflation on a lot of currencies. We're in the dollar and we see inflation, but inflation is worse in foreign countries, and they're weakening against the dollar. And as an American that uses dollars, I almost find that that's like foolish. Like, it doesn't make sense, but that means all the other currencies are worse than ours, and ours is bad.
I don't know. It seems like nothing's like mine as well. What do you got to lose at this point? Where it's like
gold, Krugrands, or people are joking. It's
everything
like,
is bad.
if only I had put my whole portfolio into gasoline and lentils, like basic goods. Like, what are you actually? Used cars, gasoline.
Oil was negative.
There was apparently a person that made $51 million because the issue was that there wasn't transportation due to the supply chain issues. So the person bought a ton of oil futures and then just arranged for the transportation and got some warehouses, and they bought oil at negative, but all they had to do was cover the transportation cost. And apparently they made $50 million.
They're paying you to buy oil.
And now oil is through the roof.
Yeah. That's like the trade of this last 10 years at least.
Moving crypto into luxury cars and luxury watches, that would have been a great trade.
Yeah.
Buying used cars, buying gasoline.
Used cars. Everyone, they're not even using they want your used car for the microchip for new cars, because there's just a warehouse of empty cars and they don't have enough microchips because there's only 2 places in the whole world.
You get conspiratorial, and you see in California, they're trying to outlaw gas combustion engines or the sale of them. And then every car is going to have a chip in it. And then,
well, yeah,
that's too tinfoil hat though. Like, let's move forward with it.
But yeah, so